Okay, exam Wednesday. So same format. You know, a few questions and not much computation. So we'll be over everything since kind of the crisscross. The idea of the crisscross kind of leads into repeated measures. So there's kind of a gray area between where you stop with the crisscross and where you go to repeated measures, and then through confound factorials, but not incomplete block designs. Some reading assignment here. If we want to see where we're going, we'll start talking about fractional factorials next. I don't know if we'll get to that today, but fractions are just a part of a full factorial. And so in your text, Giesbrecht and Gumpertz, you can read about that. Some have used it. This can be very relevant to others, not so much, depending on what you're doing. Let's see, in Mead et al. This is, let's see, 14.1 to 14.4. Cochran and Cox, chapter 6a. Okay, so let's see where we're going. Last time we were talking about row column designs. Any questions? Okay, remember what row column design is. It's kind of a generalization of a Latin square. And in your previous design class, hopefully you talked about Latin squares and multiples of Latin squares. And that's probably about all you talked about. But the important thing about row column designs is that you can block in two directions. And so the row is a blocking factor, and the columns are blocking factors, and we need a set of treatments that we'd like to be able to apply to each experimental units. But the problem is, in general, so we have rows and columns as blocking factors. Let's say T treatments. Now, in general, we might not be able to control the number of rows, or the number of columns, or the number of treatments. But if we know there's likely variation in the row direction or the column direction, we need to block it out if we can. Now, ideally, the ideal is use a Latin square. The ideal, use a Latin square, or some form of Latin square. So, for example, a Latin square would be A, B, C, B, C, A, and C, A, B. Okay. I have three treatments, A, B, C. I have three rows and three columns. Okay, what's the ANOVA look like for this? I'll have 8 degrees of freedom. Source of variation, I'll have row, which would be 2, column, which would be 2, treatment, which is 2. And then, of course, everything else goes into error. Now, what is the error in a row column design? It's just a mixed bag of a whole bunch of everything else is really what that is. Okay, so when we're talking about confounded factorials, we could explicitly see, or randomized blocks, that kind of thing, we could explicitly see what's in the error term. You may not be able to when you're talking about row column design. So it's just kind of everything else. So the ANOVA will look something like this. But in general, we won't have a nice situation like this. Or we might have multiple Latin squares. Well, what's that going to change? The things we're going to change is the number of rows or the number of columns you have. There you might have multiple columns, you see. It's going to change the degrees of freedom for columns. So these are the ideal types of designs. But what to do? So what to do if we don't have the ideal? Well, we got some defining principles. Yeah. Some principles. 4 row column designs. Now, because the ideal is to do this. Okay. So what to do? Well, first of all, principle 1 is ideally, if you can do this. So for each row and column, have each treatment an equal number of times. Okay, so in this case, I have in every row, I have each treatment once, and every column each treatment once. Well, I could have a situation where I have something like this. Let's see, A, B, B, A, B, B, A, and so on. What kind of design is that? Anybody know? What is that? It's a crossover design. Okay. Normally, these are the subjects columns, periods, or the rows. These are the most common types of designs in clinical trials. Now, does that adhere to our first principle? Yeah, it does. I have equal number of the treatments appear equally often in each column, once. Okay. Not only that, in this case, I got 4. Each treatment appears equally often in a row. In this case, twice. Okay. So they're equal in rows and columns. They don't necessarily appear exactly the same number of times. Okay, they do in this case, but that's a nice design. So that adheres to the first principle. All right, so that's what we want to choose for if we can, because everything's nice and balanced. We can balance it out. But if we can't do that, then what do we do? Well, the second principle is get orthogonality in rows if you can, which is what I'm talking about here. This is orthogonality. The word orthogonal is a good word. What does it mean? Factors are perpendicular to each other. Okay, maybe we could just use the word perpendicular in a geometric sense. Everything we've done in this class we can do through geometry. Okay, and it's fairly easy to show. And maybe we should do that. It's a tradition not to do it geometrically, but should sometimes, I guess. Anyway, if we can't get orthogonality, so if we can't get orthogonality in both rows and columns, then 2. So if you can't get 1. If I can't get 1, here's 2. 2 is get orthogonality in the rows. In the rows, or the columns, and then get balance, an IBD type of balance, and get balance in the columns, or in this case, if it's row orthogonality in the columns, then you want balance in the rows. Okay, now the balance here, I mean, is like the incomplete block balance, incomplete block design balance type. Okay. Okay. So what do I mean with number 2 then? Number 2 would be, let's look at this one. Here's a cyclic design. I already know about this. I've looked at this one a lot. 0, 1, 3. I got 7 treatments, and I got 3 rows and 7 columns. Okay, and it's a cyclic design. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1, 2. Okay, now notice, I'm just using letters or numbers now instead of letters, but notice that's a row column design. Here are my columns, and here are my rows. Okay, okay, now this turns out to adhere to principle 2. Why? Where's the orthogonality here? The rows. Orthogonality is in the rows. I get the orthogonalities in the rows because each treatment appears exactly once, an equal number of times. And what do I get in the columns? I get IBD balance in the columns. This is a BID, and it's a BID in the columns, right? BID in the columns. That's a perfect type of design if you can't get a Latin square type of design. Okay, so I have a BID in the columns, and it's orthogonal in the rows. Right? What's it going to look like with this one? let's see, I got 21, right? So 20. Somebody help me here. Anybody? How about columns? Okay. How many degrees of freedom for columns? 6. Rows? 2. Treatments? 6. And in there, it'd be everything else, so it'll be 6, right? Let's see, 14, 20 minus 14 is 6. Easy. Just use least squares on this. Use Excel on this, analyze. Okay? Well, you want to use mixed model. What would be logical to consider random here? Well, my rule said you can't consider that random, white, because, well, unless it's for the well-defined population, maybe, but there's not enough degrees of freedom to consider row to really be random. Okay, be careful about that. Columns maybe. Okay? You think of columns are subjects, okay? They're farms, say, or they're animals, and they can be representative of some population of farms or animals. Maybe you could simply call them be random. Okay? So this adheres to the second principle. Okay, so questions on this so far? Yeah, in human studies, you'll see these things like this in clinical trials. In animal studies, too, and especially nutrition trials and animal studies, you'll see these kinds of things. In plant sciences, where do you see these kinds of things? Say these are years. If these are years, where might you see a design and these are farms or fields, where might you see a design like this in plant sciences? Anybody? How about rotation experiments? Okay, you've got 7 treatments, and I want to rotate them in a particular way and balance them out the best I can. Okay. Okay. So rotation experiments are all related to. They can be related to row column signs, lat squares, and these kinds of things. Okay. Now, if this one doesn't hold, okay. So if this does not hold, this cannot hold. Principle 2 cannot hold. Then, what are we going to do? Then we're going to use principle 3. I can write up here. It's getting kind of hard to see a little bit. Anybody guess? These two are fairly easy to see, right? That's just a combination of what we've been doing. But I can't get it. I can't get it this way. I don't have enough of them to get balanced this way. Maybe I have fewer. Right? Maybe I have fewer than that way. Well, I suppose it'd be nice to get a BIV this way and a BIV that way. Okay. Almost never can do that. Right? Sometimes maybe, but it's very rare. Well, one thing you do is you say, look, if I don't have these, I want to set it up so I would get at least a treatment with another treatment appearing equally often in either a row or a column. Okay? So I want 0 to be with 1 times or 2 times somewhere. Okay? Well, in this case, if I drop those out, 0's with 1 twice, right? 0's with 3 twice. 0's with 1, 2, and 4 once. But it's never with the other ones, right? Well, it is with maybe 5 and 6. Maybe that's not too bad of a design. But this is what people often will do. They'll take a very nice design and just lop off part of it if they can't get number 2. That's a practical thing to do, right? But we need a defining principle. Okay, so the third defining principle is here, is we want to make the joint occurrences make the joint occurrences of each treatment pair in rows or columns as equal as possible. or column C as equal as possible. Well, we really didn't do that here. You know, I'm just using a cyclic design to lop those off. Okay. But often that's practically what people will do. Now, an example of one of these is what's called the simplest example of one of these is called a balanced lattice. Okay. If I can find my example here. Or a lattice square. So example of this is a lattice square. Okay, in a lattice square, what do? Is I start with a balanced lattice. Start with a balanced lattice, which we know how to get, right? Actually, this is related to confound factorials, right? We use confound factorial ideas to get this, right? Now, I'm not going to ask you about balanced lattices, but what the example I gave you was that an A by B, a 3 by 3 factorial, 3 by 3, right? Confounded in blocks of size 3. Remember the example I gave you? Okay. So that's not beyond the confound factorial stuff. So you know how to get a balanced lattice. Remember, we got 4 replicants for that. There's a handout on that. And then 2 to get a lattice square. 2 to rearrange the rows and columns to get the row column designs. Rearrange the rows and columns to get the lattice square, to get a row column design. That's what a lattice square is. In this case, a lattice square. A lattice square is a row column design. Okay, so I want to put my screen down here in a minute. Well, maybe I will. So I'm going to start with my example here. So to give you an example, so let's just assume that you remember how to get a balanced lattice. Remember we had 4 reps of the balanced lattice, right? Now I'm not going to write those out. Well, maybe I should. Let me have the first 2 reps. Here's the first 2 reps of the balanced lattice. So balanced lattice, T is equal to 9. Okay, and the first 2 reps. The first 2 reps look like this. 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, 3, 6, 9. That's the first rep. And the second rep is 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, 3, 6, 9. Okay, that's the first 2 reps. That's rep 1 and rep 2. So it says, start with a balanced lattice and rearrange rows and columns. Now this is in each rep from pairs of reps. To get the row column design. So let's take the pairs of reps. This is rep 1 and rep 2. This is rep 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these 2 together. Now the idea is I want to put them 2 together so I get one with all treatments in one or the other. Okay. So if I do this, I get square 1. So this is step 1. And step 2, square 1 I get looks like this. I'll have 1, 2, 3, and then let's see, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, and 9. So I take the rows from rep 1. Here they are. And I take the columns from rep 2. Okay. I take the rows from rep 2 and make those columns. Okay, so if I take the columns from rep 1, there they are. And I take the rows from rep 2 and make those columns. So look, 1, 4, 7 is 1, 4, 7 here. I don't have to rearrange them at all. 2, 5, 8 turns out to be 2, 5, 8 here, and 3, 6, 9 is 3, 6, 9. Okay, you see the idea? Now, I've got a row column design because that adheres to property 3 because each treatment appears with each other treatment in equal number of times. Well, it's close. Let's see, we have to have how many? We have to have 5, 6, 8, 9. We only have 4 of them here, right? So this would be for square 1, and for square 2, using the same ideas with the 2 wraps, then I'll get something that looks like this. It'll be 1, 9, 5, 6, 2, 7, 8, 4, 3. So square 2 will look like this. Okay, and I'll get the rows from this one from rep 3, and I'll get the columns for the second square from rep 4. Okay, and you can verify this. Okay. But notice what I have. Now I've got 1 and 9 and 5 and 6 and 8. Now if I look at both these squares together, look, 1 is with 2 and 3 and 4 and 7. And over here, 1 is with 9 and 5 and 6 and 8. So that adheres to principle 3. Okay, it's make joint occurrences of each treatment pair in rows or columns as equal as possible. In this case, each treatment appears with each other treatment exactly once, either in a row or column somewhere in the design. Okay, so this is the idea of a lattice square, so we can, or a lattice square, so we can balance out the rows and the columns. Okay. Okay. Now the ANOVAs are fairly easy. I'd have 2 squares, and then I could get rows nested within square, columns nested within square, and treatment in there. Okay, you should be able to write out that NOVA. Okay. Okay? So these are still perfect type of designs, right? I mean, even these are, oh, they're really nice, but even then, what happens if we can't get these? Do the best you can. Well, what happens if you can't adhere to even the third one? Okay. If can't get design that adheres to principle 3. What do we do if we can't get one that adheres to principle 2? This is kind of a perfect type of design. Okay. Well, what I'll show you here is we can Latinize. And so, Latinize. Latinize a BIB if possible. Okay, what do I mean by Latinize? Basically what this is the balance principle. Get as close to a Latin square as you can, starting with BIB. So here's an example. Let's see, I've got T is equal to 6. I got 10 blocks. K is equal to 3. And we've already done this one. We can, this gives rise to R is equal to 5 and lambda is equal to 2. We've done this one. We did this by hand, by direct instruction, right? Now, it might be easier if I do it over here so we can kind of see what's going on. So remember, we got this. A, then B, and then C. Then we puzzled this one out. I'm just going to write it down. We did this directly. Okay. Then I had B, C, D, E, D, F, C, F, D, E, F, G, and DF. So what I'm saying over here is ideally, if 3 doesn't hold, then try to get a BIB if you can. So in this case, I got 3 here. Number of rows is 3. rows, number of rows equals 3, right? 1, 2, 3. How many columns do I have? The number of blocks, be 10, right? So number of columns equals 10. Now Latinize, what am I going to do? I'm going to Latinize this. Latinize. Well, what I want to do is take each block and rearrange those treatments within a block, so I try to balance these things out the best I can. Now look, I don't want to have A showing up in that row like that. Look, I can certainly balance out A better than that, right? Now if I have 10 units here to put those treatments in, well, I have 6 treatments, then it's inevitable that 2 of them are going to show up twice, and then the rest of them can only show up once, right? Okay, so I'm going to have some imbalance in that row, but try to balance them out the best you can. You can look at that, that's not balanced at all, right? And it's okay to balance these things within a block. Okay, so that's the idea of Latinization. Okay, so this second one, I don't want A there. Let's move it down. Move it down somewhere. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate it like this and move it down like B, like this. So this one goes to that one goes to that. And then now I don't want to put A here, I don't want to put A here. My choice is put A down here now, right? To try to balance it out, and then C, E. Okay, so that would go like this. And then A, D, F. So you just need to puzzle this out and try to balance them out the best you can. Everybody see what I mean? Okay. So A, B, F, F, A, E, just B, C, this one I got. You could get different ones. B, C, F, E, B, D, E, F, B, C, D, E, and F, C, D. Now, does it look like a... Well, that was the same, and that one's F, A, yeah, that's okay. Then B, C, F, right? And then B, D, E, B, D, E, F, okay. All right. Now, let's look at each row. Let's look at each row. How many times does A show up? A shows up twice. How many times E show up? Twice. Well, the rest of them show up once. Right? So it's balanced in that sense. So here, A and E twice in that row, right? What about in this one? Well, I want to get some other pairs that show up twice. Which ones show up twice here now? B and C. D. C, B, C, B, I screw something up. B, C, and D. B, C, D, A. Hey, so there's 4 of them, right? Show up twice, right? Okay, I think that's right. There. Unless I did something wrong here. So it's A is twice, right? B is twice, D is twice, and C is twice. And which one show up once? A and B, right? No. E and F. E and F. Once. Okay, what about the last one?
For the first one also it should be C as well.
Oh, wait a minute, C. It should be A,
C,
E,
F as well.
and F. Okay, let's just do this. It's the other, E and F. A, C, E, and F twice. And this one is, and you've written it down, tell me what it is. It's A, B, what else? C, C, D, okay. Twice. And then the last one is, whatever it is, it'd be the other ones, right?
F,
D, E, F, B, D, E, F. B, D, E, and F? Okay. It's hard for me to talk and think at the same time. Okay, so this is Latinized. See the idea? This is the best you can do. So I suppose if I had 4th principle, I'd say this is the kind of thing that you're going to end up stuck having to do with these types of designs if you're going to make them yourself. Okay. Okay, so, well, what do we do? Well, the first thing that computer literate people do is use a computer. You know, there's hardly any software that will do row column designs that effectively. There's a thing called, oh gosh, by some guys at John out of New Zealand. That I can't think. It's called Encyclic. They use cyclic designs, but it's not the most general thing. There's virtually no software out there to generate general row column designs. Okay, so that's something that we need somebody to write some software for. That would be free, because lots of these things you're going to have to pay if you're going to be doing these kinds of things. But what? So ideally, how to generate these things? Ideally, to have a computer program. But I have your homework assignment. You pick it up and class. There's tables that people have used over the years to try to see if are there any optimal types of designs that you can use. Okay, and here's a table that's out of Cochran & Cox that's useful to look at. Hopefully that's enough. Well, frankly, when I do these things, I don't know what you do if you've got really a lot of treatments. Let's see, I want to do one here. I don't know what to do here. Let's see. I don't know how to change this. Okay, so let's see if we can use it. So here's a table. Let's see, and let's see, if you look at some of these designs on the back, let's just take the first one here, which is this one. So this is Plan 13.1. That should look pretty familiar to you. Okay, we just did this one. It's a cyclic design, isn't it? Okay. All right, so this is if you have 7 treatments, and you have, say, 3 rows and what, 7 columns, and you're going to replicate each treatment 3 times. Okay, that's just a cyclic design. Okay, so we know about that. So this kind of thing. So the table, if you look back on the front, the table gives you a listing of all these different designs that are possible given the number of treatments you have, the number of the rows, number of columns, and then, of course, these E-values kind of the same as we had talked about before. So there are tables of these kinds of designs that you can consult. Okay, I'll make it wider. So the questions on this. We can get tables on these. Now, here's one. The one below it. This is an interesting relationship. Now, in the final, I could ask you, what's the relationship between those 2 designs? How do they relate to each other? We talked about this concept, this very concept right here. How many units do I have in the block in this one? In the rows, say. How many units do I have in the rows in here? 3. 3 units in a row, right? How many units in the row do I have over here? 4. What if I put those 2 together? Well, if I line them up right, I'd have a randomized complete block, right? So what does that mean that this one is compared to that one? What is it called? It's a complement. Okay? This is a complementary design of that. So once you get this one, you get this one. Okay? And there's this interesting relationship when you start talking about cyclic designs between complementation. But anyway, you can see the basic idea. Here's another one down here. These are what Cochran & Cox called these things incomplete Latin squares. And they gave you the ones that really had VIBs. There are VIBs in this example, VIBs in the rows, and then they're orthogonal in the columns. And that's kind of what this table is about. I wish I could give you software that would give you these designs, but I can't. There's Dr. Benziger did have, I can't think of the name of the package that he was paying for that didn't mind anybody using, but
Agrobase?
no, it's not Agrobase. It's I have to go back and look at it, but that's expired. So anyway, Okay, so so that's one thing we need that's important in terms of general ideas. So any questions about the general ideas of low column designs? How we construct them, what are the ideas, how do you analyze them? They're all pretty easy. It's not much different than what we did. Now we just have to block in two directions. Okay, well now an interesting part of low column design is how these are related to carryover effects. These designs have been used extensively, as I said earlier. These designs have been used extensively in clinical trials. And probably when a company, the pharmaceutical companies are making so much money now, when they come up with a new drug, then it has to go through certain testing protocol before the FDA will accept it and allow them to market the drug and make money. So there's certain protocols and the kinds of experimental designs that allow you to use it. And a crossover is the one that's the most used, or the one that's been used most. So the crossover designs. Now there's problems with these. And we'll generalize this a little bit. I think I gave an example. The simple case is one that looks like this. A, B, B, A, and so on. And so here's the periods. Period 1 and 2. Here's the subjects. 1, 2, and so on. Okay, so you can have any number of subjects. They don't necessarily have to be balanced. But what you do is you give them the drug, say on period 1, and then notice this is generally for acute problems. You know, like cancer trials, they don't do cancer trials in crossover drugs. I mean, that's more of a chronic condition, so they'll do something more simpler like a CRD. Okay, but if it's an acute type of a problem that, that's say like high blood pressure or something, then they can use these kinds of designs. Okay, so say the first week you get blood pressure drug A, then the second week you're not on any blood pressure drug at all because you have a bleed out time, so you don't want the effect of the first drug carried over to the second one. And then the third week you get drug B. Okay, and at the end of the week we'll measure your blood pressure and see how well it's doing with blood pressure. And so we do this, we get a bunch of subjects and we randomize it that way. And most drugs tests are done this way. Now, what is A? A is usually like the standard drug. They want to, most of the drug trials I've helped people with is about bioequivalence. Bioequivalence means that you've got a standard drug, A, and you want to show your drug is no different. Okay? That it does basically the same thing. So you compare it to a standard. Most of them are like this, certainly to establish bioequivalence. Okay, so what's the major advantage of this? Of these types of designs. Now that you've had this class, at least understand the major issues of design of experiment, what's the major advantage of this design?
Cost efficient. Cost efficient.
Yeah, cost efficient. That's always the case, right? That's the one thing. So you can always get a gold star for that. Right, it's cost efficient, but from a statistical point of view, why? You get more bang for the buck. Okay, that's what cost efficiency means, right? From a statistical point of view, what is more bang from the buck? Anybody?
It's balanced. Each treatment will show up an equal number of times.
Well, each treatment will show up an equal number of times, right? But what's the most important thing in designing an experiment? Given that you've got your treatment, you've got a limited amount of money, you want what? You want the highest chance of detecting a difference if it exists, right? So why is this probably a pretty good design compared to a completely randomized design where I'd take half the subjects, put them on A, and the other half subjects, put them on B? You could remove subject-to-subject variation. If we can block on subjects, we can remove, look at how different we are. We can remove variance among people. That's a huge, huge effect usually. So we can remove differences among people by blocking on subjects. Okay? Often the periods are not so important other than the fact that I get both treatments on each subject. Right? So the most important advantage is we block out the effects of subject, which is usually huge. Block out effects of subject. Can usually gives you, it's cost effective, more power than a CRD, etc. More cost effective and so on. More power, cost effective and so on. They all come from the same source.
What is the difference between it and PERT-T?
Between what?
PERT-T test.
Which would I
T in
suggest?
PERT. T in PERT.
In pairs? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
T test. What's the difference?
You mean a pair t-test?
Yeah.
Well, it is kind of the same idea, absolutely. Okay, well, I'm saying, well, the analysis now, that's the analysis for the design, not the design itself. You can do a pair t-test, you get those differences, right? You just get the differences between them and test them. That's essentially what your ANOVA is. It is a pair t-test, essentially. Okay? Right, so it's easy to analyze conceptually. But the idea of the pair t-test can give rise to the major limitation. The major limitation, the major disadvantage. Think of the pair t-test. I'm just going to get a difference between these. Right? And I'm going to test if that difference is equal to 0. But what happens if I put A before B? I get this huge difference. But then I put B before A, I get no difference at all. Something's done washed, doesn't it? Okay? If I take the order, the sequence of these things affects that difference, then there's something fishy happening here. You see? But know what that is.
First and which the second, yes.
Yeah, which one you give has an effect on the second one. That's called carryover effect. So the major disadvantage is you can't have carryover effect. Can have carryover effect. From the previous treatment. And what does that mean? That means that what that would mean is the A-B differences are not equal to the minus of the BA differences. That means the sequence in which you get them is different. Boy, that's a problem. FDA knows this. Okay? And so what's FDA require me to do? Anybody know? Well, first of all, you better have enough power. Because they're going to say, look, we know you want to show these things are equal. Okay, well, any Yahoo can show them that they're equal. They just have 2 subjects. Power's so lousy, right? So the FDA mandates that you have to have an 80% chance of showing a difference, 20% difference. Okay, you have to have adequate power. But then you got to test for carryover effects. Okay, how do you test for this? Test for carryover. And it's not very good. There's been a whole bunch of tests for it. In my ANOVA, let's assume that I only have, let's assume I got S subjects. Okay, so the last one down here would be BA, I guess. S subjects. And so the total degrees of freedom I'll have would be, let's see, 2S minus 1. And the source of variation would be subject. That's the columns. Okay. And then period. Let's see, subject is S minus 1. Period is going to be 1. Treatment's 1. And then error is going to be S minus 2. Now they should add up. Well, that's a standard Latin square analysis, right? Not an issue. But we need to test the carryover effect. Okay, now the idea of carryover effect is you take all your subjects. So here's your subjects under sequence 1. So you take all the people that get A first. Got all those people in sequence 1, and then you have the other people in sequence 2. Sequence 2. And these would all be BA, BA, BA. Now, if there's a carryover effect, these are going to be different from each other, right? there's a carrier effect. I take the mean of these, that's going to be different than the mean of those. That means there's a sequence. That means how you give it to them is going to be different. Right? Okay, here's a final type question. Give me a test for sequence. Okay, this is cutting edge stuff. And about Grizzle did this first in about 1962. If you can solve that, then you're cutting edge research in 1962. Grizzle is a biostatistician at UNC. No, North Carolina. James, name one in the. Oh, you're not from Chapel Hill, are you? Name one. Many money.
No, I always bet against.
You always bet against. North Carolina won the basketball championship just last week, so that's a big deal, you know. It's like Nebraska winning the national football championship. Okay, come on, how do we do this? I can break out these degrees of freedom, okay? And I can just I can get a mean for sequence 1 and a mean for sequence 2. And I can get how many means am I going to have? S minus 1 corrected. Now what do? I can just break out 1 degree of freedom for sequence 1, and then this would be subjects netted within sequence, okay, which would be S minus 2. And if I do this, that's like this whole plot. This is like the whole plot. It's like split plot analysis. You see that? Everybody see the idea? So if I just take the means over each subject, so I'll have, here's my means down here, whatever they are, you know, I'll have over both of those, right? I'll have S means, and I partition those S means out this way. Okay? What is this? This is a t-test on these, right? So I just use t-test to analyze this, if you know what you're doing. So this is a test for carrier effect. If it's significant, let's say at alpha equals 0.1, I think that's what FDA does. They require this if it's significant at alpha equals 0.1. Then what do? We can't trust the results of the trial, right? Why? We don't give a hoot about whether you take this one first or that one second, right? What are we trying to make an inference about? We're trying to make an inference about if I take all the population of the United States, put them on A, versus all the population in the United States, put them on B. There's no carryover effect there, right? I just want the difference between A and B when these people are totally different from each other, right? Okay. So there's no way I can make an inference about the general population if I got carryover effect in there, right? FDA says if it's significant, I think it's alpha 0.1. Then what do? What should the FDA tell you to do? Well, we want unbiased data. We don't care if your study has very good power or not. We want unbiased data. How do you get unbiased data from this? Because of this problem, we don't trust this design. You can't go back and do it again. Or they'll get to they might have $50 million at this stage. Maybe more than that, 100 million in some of these trials. What do? FDA says, goodbye, get rid of the second period. You go, you can't, your bosses, you just threw away half the power we have. FDA mandates that. If this thing is significant, then remove the second period and analyze it how? Analyze, now you can't do it as a paired t-test. How do we analyze it? Just a double or independent two-sample t-test, right? So analyze as it's going to be just a CRD, right? Because the people will be randomized to these. What a mess! All of a sudden, luckily there is a solution. Although the problem with this design, there's no solution to this other than that. So what people have done in the past, they'll put down what's called switchback design. They'll put A's down here again, okay? And they can use that information, that BAB, ABA, and then they might have an AAA and BBB. But anyway, these are called switchback. If you put that final one in, that's a switchback design. There's been a lot of work done on that. And it turns out that you can get estimates for these treatment effects by taking advantage of that third period. Okay. That came out of animal science, and Hurley Lucas from North Carolina. All these things came out of North Carolina.
Got a question.
Yeah.
So ideally, wouldn't they do like a pilot study to figure out what was that period, that washout period, to not have carryover effect?
Yeah, absolutely.
But that doesn't happen?
Well, I mean, that's what they'll try to do. And of course, I mean, look, you know about this before you do it. You know, you better have a good statistician that knows about these things before you don't have a carryover period in there. You better know what you're doing. Normally what they'll do, they'll have a carryover period in there. And hopefully, I mean, this is research. Hopefully it washes out. There's no guarantee with this design, right? There could be residual effects in there you still know about. Okay? How much time do you have to spend? Time is money. Okay, you got these people in this trial, you want them in there as short as possible, right? So there's always this issue of trying to make that thing as close as possible, right? Well, if you have more than 2 treatments, there's a way to design your way out of this. Okay, there's a solution to this. Did that answer your question, Lou? Yeah, but I mean, you just need to make sure you have a rest period in between, and hopefully that takes care of it, and then you don't need to worry about this. But what do you do even if you have rest period, you find out significance, then you're in trouble. You better really have some confidence on this before you do these kinds of things. Okay, so if you only have 2 treatments and 2 periods, there's not much you can do. Design can help. One way would be to, say if t is equal to 2, one way is to add another period. So we'd have 3 periods, so it'd be period 3. Add another period and more treatment combinations. And more sequence combinations. I'm going to talk about this. You can read about this. Combinations. This is called switchback design. Switchback design. Types of designs. There's a lot of stuff that you know these things. What I'm more interested in generalizing this to the case where you have more than 2 treatments. So if I have more than 2 treatments, we have designs that we can explicitly use to balance for residual effects. So t is greater than 2. We have designs to measure or to account for residual effects. Count for carryover effects. And these all come out of roll column designs. These are all roll column designs. And here in these kinds of designs, they're Latin square kinds of designs, the idea is you want to balance them out so every treatment precedes every other treatment an equal number of times. So we could, if there's a carryover effect, we want to account for that in terms of our design. In other words, well, I'll just write it down. If we want to account each treatment precedes each other treatment an equal number of times. Is before each other treatment an equal number of times. If you can do it. And this allows us to estimate the carryover effects. In this case, can estimate carryover effects. And then once we can estimate it, we can remove it. So once we've estimated, we're going to remove carryover effects. So let me give you an example here. How do we balance those out? This is called Williams design. Here's an example. I got 4 treatments. And I got 4 rows and 4 columns. And we can extend this to more rows and more columns, but this is called Williams design. Okay, and so here's just an example. Here's my generator, A, D, B, C. That's my generator. And I'm gonna generate it this way, so it's gonna go B, C, B, D, A, B, C, B, C, D, A, and C, D, C, D, A, B. So that's my generator. It's cyclic design. It's just a Latin square, that's all it is. But look, A is before D once. Okay? A is before C once. A is before B once, right? Where is it? Should be.
Last column.
Last one.
Yeah, last one, so on. So it's balanced for carryover. Each treatment, that's what I'm saying, each treatment, it precedes each other treatment an equal number of times. In this case, it's once. Okay? Compare this to a standard Latin square. It's a standard Latin square. A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, C, D, A, D, A, B, D, A, B, C.
Can we randomize both columns and rows?
Huh?
Can we randomize rows and the columns?
You can't, no, you can only randomize columns. You can't randomize rows, 'cause that's gonna screw this up. All right? Yeah, you've got to maintain the integrity of the rows. Okay. Well, a good question. Notice now, A is before B how many times?
3.
Twice. Okay. What about A before C? Never, right? No. Okay. Well, it is up here, but this is just for a one period carryover. Okay. There are designs where you might have 2 period carryover, 3 period. Okay. So where do these show up? Well, just in drug testing. Okay. Let me see the idea. I'll give you the generator here in a second of how to get these. Okay. And it turns out just the idea of the cyclic designs, which you already know about, can be used to identify these things. Just like simple ideas of cyclic structure. So this is not balanced. Not balanced for carryover. So you can't estimate it. You know. So what do? Throw it away. I don't know. Throw away the last 3 periods. You know, what do you do? So, okay, you see how to use these in drug testing. How to do these in animals? How about feeding trials? Chickens. So I got 4 chickens. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I look for egg production in each chicken. You got 4 different diets. These could be diets, and I got that one chicken, and I could randomize the order of these diets. Okay? And look, I don't have enough time to worry about the carryover. I can use this design to estimate the effect of carryover from one diet to the next. Right? How about the plant sciences? Where are you going to use this? Well, I should say food sciences too. Where do we use it? In the plant sciences, I have a field. In fact, we've done this. We did this. We used Williams design, it was a specialized type of Williams design. And Barn Brothers Ranch out here. It's a 5,000 acre ranch that the university has. We had the whole 5,000 acres in a Williams design. The whole 5,000. And these were my years. Years are like this. And it was a grazing experiment. We had 4 different grazing treatments on every pasture. And so we could measure, look, if you overgraze that pasture, those plants all die. They'll have a huge carryover effect the next year. So those treatments on how intensely you graze those animals can have a huge effect. Could have a huge effect on the response. So we could estimate carryover effect on these huge pastures. And so I think we had 10 years. So it wasn't totally balanced because you really need 8. I think we had 10 years on this. I wanted to go 16 years. You say, that's what you can't go 16 years. We don't have enough. 5,000 acres for 10 years is enough. But there's no carryover effect, which was good. You know, but it was important to be able to have that. Okay, so now how do we do this in food sciences? Well, whatever unit, say you got a fermenter here. Okay, now you clean out that fermenter every time you put these treatments in that fermenter. Okay, But there still may be a carryover effect for some reason or another. Now, you think if you got this big vessel and you clean it out totally, you're not going to have any carryover effect. But Lord, you could. You could have an incubator here, and there's a carryover effect for some reason from incubator from one set to the next. Okay, or some sort of experiment.
So what about like on field trials when you have like a fertilizer trial and you're using the same area in different years?
Oh, sure. I mean, fertilizer trial could be very important. You know, I mean, well, but let them really be realistic. Fertilizers, unless they're really at high levels, maybe they're not going to have much of an impact. Okay. But if they do, if whatever you're doing, say you put cover crops in here, that could have a big carryover effect. I don't know, just maybe where you put on real high levels of N and P, maybe it would carry over. Usually what happens is leaches. I mean, you know more about this than I do. But I haven't seen them do that in fertilizer trials. Why not? You know, if it looks like there's a residual effect. You bet.
Crop rotation maybe also.
Crop rotation, no question crop rotation. Right. In fact, all the ideas, basic ideas of crop rotation come out of Latin squares. Okay. But there's usually, they don't worry about carryover effect too much, which is, I think, kind of interesting. I think it's probably because they have found out over the years that there is not much carryover effect. You know, although it would seem like it would be. Right. Rotation, sure. So other questions on this? Well, how do we get these WIMS designs? They're easy. Once you have the generators, and it wouldn't be hard for you to come up with these. So if T is equal to, so you need the generators. How to get the generators? Generators for WIMS designs. Well, I'll just tell you, if T is equal to, if T is even, then it's, so the rows are like what I'm talking about here. Here are the rows. Then a generator, when T is even, we'll only have one of them. It'll be 0, 1, T minus 1, 2, T minus 2, all the way down to T over 2. So when it's even. Now, for example, when T is equal to 4, so let's say A is 0, right? Let's see, A is 0, and B would be 1. So let's see, it would be A, B, then T minus 1 if it's T is 4. 4 minus 1 would be, no, wait a minute. Let's just do it this way. This would be 0, 1, 4 minus 1 is 3, and then 2, right? Now that's my generator, and now I just 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 0, 3, 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 0, 1. Now, 1 follows 0 once, 3 follows 0 once, 2 follows 0 once, and nothing follows 0 once. Okay? So this generator, so here's my generator here, that comes right out of this thing. And we get 1 square. Okay? Now, if number of treatments is equal to odd, then I have to use 2 squares. Okay? So here, T is odd. So it's going to be 0, 1, T minus 1, 2, T minus 2, down to T plus 1 over 2. And what I do, that's for the first square. And then I cycle in the same idea. This would be square 1, and then the other generator is just going to be the exact opposite. I'll go T plus 1 over 2. So I'm starting from the bottom now and just going up the other way. Basically is what it is. So it would be T plus 1 over 2, then T minus 1 over 2, and all the way down to, let's see, it'd be T minus 2, 2, T minus 1, 1, and then 0. Okay. So it's just the opposite. Okay, so this would be for square 1, and this would be for square 2. And the simplest case would be, let's say t is equal to 3. Then you can just plug this in, 0, 1, and then t minus 1 is 3 here, or 2. So that'd be for the first square. And then the second square is 2, then 1, and 0. So this would be for the generators for the 2 squares. And then if I generate these, it's going to be 1, 2, then 1, 2, 0, then 2, 0, 1. That's one square. And the other square is going to be 2, 0, 1, 1, 2, 0, and 1, 0, 2. That'd be the other square with that generator. What's your number for this? It's easy, right? It's going to be the same thing, really. Almost, it's just going to be row, column, treatment. Is that it? No, the whole purpose of these designs is allow you to estimate carrier effect. So what happens, you'll just have another source of variation in your NOVA. That's it. You can set these things up and just use least squares, okay? But you're going to have another column or several columns in your X matrix to account for the carryover effect. You're going to have to figure out which one was before which other and then code those that way. Okay. So, questions on any of this? Yeah, Jude.
For the generator, we do not need to start always with a 0. We can start any number and then follow the.
Yeah, I don't think it makes any difference. At least when you got 2 of them, you probably better make sure whatever you do over here, you do over there. The whole point of these is that if I take a pair, that's a good point. The difference between these is 1, right? Well, this is not a good example. The whole point of these is if I take a difference, the difference between those is 1, the difference between these is 2, the difference between these is minus 1, right? What's minus 1 mod 4? This is 3. And so what I get all 3 differences equal. I get 1 once, 2 once, 3 once. This is 3 mod 4. That's what counts, is that when you take these differences the order this way is important. When you take the differences this way on that generator, then you get between sequential responses, you get all possible differences, just like what we were doing when we were talking about incomplete block designs. Okay, but in this case, it's simpler. So, right, it doesn't make any difference what order you put those in there as long as you're consistent. If you have pairs of squares, you better be consistent about it, right? Yeah. Good question. Other questions? The analysis. Well, the model is a little different. Let's just write the model out. Let's see, I, J, K, L, I think is what it is. Let's see how the effect for mean plus the effect of, let's see, row I plus the effect of column J plus the effect of treatment. Here's my treatment K. So this is my treatment. This is, say, a column. This is row. And then we have something else. We're going to have the residual effect plus the residual effect. So this is the residual or the carryover effect. They're both the same. Residual or carryover effect are used interchangeably. Okay, and this would be L plus E, I, J, K, L. So whereas before we didn't have this. We didn't have that thing. What this is the carryover effect for treatment L on the following period. That's what that is. It's the average effect. And so the total effect you're going to get, when you look at an experimental unit, the total effect are these two added together. Okay, it's the actual effect due to the treatment by itself, on its own, plus the effect of the carryover of the residual. So when you do an analysis on a design that has carryover effect in it, and you don't design it adequately, you can't estimate R. These things are confounded. So your treatment, tests for treatments are invalid because they're biased. Okay? Everybody see that? I'm seeing this as a big problem in this innovation campus greenhouse down here. They just spent $10 million on this thing. Nobody's paying any attention to carryover effects. Those plants are right next to each other in a pot. You know they affect each other. Okay? Company's not talking about this. Then now it depends on treatments, but any treatment you have, if you've got one pot affecting another, it's like a carryover effect, and you're getting biased estimates that's coming out of that greenhouse. Okay. But anyway, I can talk to administration, but I complain about everything to them. They all know me. It's good to have people that'll at least listen to you, or at least act like they do. But and they're talking about field trials now out next to that greenhouse. Okay, it's the same problem. They're not going to have enough space to have border areas around them, so one treatment is going to affect another. It's a carryover effect. So bias all those designs. Nobody's paying attention to this. People need to think about these things as you go forward. This is a huge problem in experiments that people don't understand. Okay, and you can help with that. Okay, so I'll say you can just use least squares. Use least squares analysis to get ANOVA. And of course the ANOVA is just going to look something like this. You'll just have source. You'd have like a unit or a column. In this example with 4, okay, I'd have 3 degrees of freedom. And period, I'd have 3 degrees of freedom. Treatment, I'd have 3 degrees of freedom. And the carryover, or the residual effect, carryover, or residual, is going to be 3. And then error, which is going to be 3. All right. So, it's 15 degrees of freedom total, we've got 16. Okay. This is the thing you need to test. Okay. But what's important about this is, look, once I estimate that, then my LS means for treatment are what? LS means for treatment 1 is what? It's mu plus G tau 1. Okay, and you can estimate those, right? You can estimate those things, basically. Now you'd have to average the effect. If it's fixed, you'd have to average the effect of the row and the column. Okay. But this would be the unbiased estimate of the treatment effect, because you estimated the residual effect, and you don't even put it in there. Just remove it. Just take it out.
But when we test the effective treatments, should we both carry over residual and error altogether?
No. If you put it in error, then you're going to still get bias in here because it's confounded treatment. You can't remove it by just ignoring it. You can't. It's there, right? It's confounded. So be upfront, design it that way, remove it, estimate it out, and then you get unbiased estimates of treatment. Okay, so I have a handout on this. Now this is from SAS. It'd be nice to have some software in R that'll do this. I think I'll just pass this out. I won't go over it. Okay. But it should be nice if somebody write R code for a lot of this stuff. I'm not the person to do it. I'm just lazy. I know I do it in SAS, so I don't want to do it in R. Because I got SAS. But if you don't have SAS where you go, you're going to have to end up writing things, right? And a lot of people are going to go to jobs where you're going to be doing statistical analysis for the whole shop, and you're going to be a statistician, and you're going to have to analyze this, and you're probably going to have to write R code for these things. Depending on where you go. Go to the university, they'll have SAS. But anyway, here's an example. This is with 2 squares. In this example, there's two Williams squares, and they talk about the analysis. And the analysis of variance and this kind of stuff. And these are all type 3 sums of squares. And And you can calculate the direct and the treatment effects, and I'll let you look at this if you're interested. Okay, that's all I have now for roll call designs. We have an exam Wednesday, then next Monday I'll talk about fractional factorials, and we'll finish out the semester talking about fractional factorials and responsive society. Okay. And I'll see you next month.